Young and old, dying every day. Can't find a remedy. Got me praying, Lord, please help me. Help me. I wanna go outside. I wanna have a good time, yeah. But I know it's best that I just stay home, stay safe. There's a blessing waiting on me. Stay home, stay safe. If I can just hold on, stay home, stay safe. Don't let the world pull me away. Stay home. Yeah, yeah, just stay home. Stay home. I ain't going nowhere. Stay home. Stay home.
At this particular time, we're going to introduce one of the leading men of our church as relates to legal issues. As a matter of fact, he is the attorney for the National Church of God in Christ. He's a dear friend of mine and a brother, amen, and a true saint of God. I would like to bring in at this time attorney elder Uleses Henderson.
Thank
God
you,
bless
Bishop.
you, Brother Henderson.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
We can hear you well, amen. And welcome, and thank you for taking out of your time. I know you're there in sunny LA. I believe it's sunny. Amen.
It is sunny, yes.
All right. Here in Michigan, we've been dealing with a lot of sun and snow at the same time.
Okay.
So man, but again, we are so excited to have you here. Attorney Henderson, there's so much to talk right now about the paycheck program that's being offered by the United States government, the stimulus packages, and you know there's many different questions, many different ideas about who qualifies, you know, who doesn't qualify, how you can apply, and just so many different things. I know that you're working in so many departments with the National Church, and again, you know, you're a man that has your hands in a lot of different things. What are some wisdoms that you can share with us here in Michigan Southwest Fifth from some of the things that you have learned about these stimulus packages that we should be aware of?
Sure. The first thing I think is just from an individual standpoint, everybody, well, I won't say everybody because I'm not getting a check, but this past weekend, the IRS pressed the send button on these economic impact payments. Okay, these stimulus payments, the $1,200. My mother-in-law, she got her check. She's happy. My sister-in-law got her check. We ain't not getting a check. So
hey, man, I got some members who got their check and they okay. Shouting all around their house right now.
Okay, just make sure they tithe on it. Okay, so the thing is with the with the, they call it the economic impact payment. What it is it's $1,200 per person. If you, and then it's $500 per child, up to a maximum of $3,000 per family. Now, the thing is, you have to understand that the payment kind of goes based upon how you file. So if you file as an individual, and you make under $75,000, you'll get the $1,200. If you file as head of household, then if you make under 1,100 or $112,500, then you'll get the full $1,200. And then if you are a married file couple, then if you make under $150,000 aggregate, then you'll get $2,400, and then you add $500 per each child. And the thing to this is that some people say, well, will I get a check if I'm on retirement or if I'm receiving veterans benefits? You will receive a check, even people who have minimum income. The way in which it works is if you file, and this is probably 80% of the people are going to get their checks that are just going to come by automatic debit. So if you file your income taxes and you file by electronic transfer, IRS already knows who you are. They're just sending you your check. Now, for those people who receive a paper check, this is going to take a process because they're going to be paying that out in phases. Starting on April 24th, they're going to start paying the check to all those who pay 10 grand, who get their income is 10 grand or less. And then what'll happen is they'll increment it. So they'll go to 20 grand or less for the next week, and then they'll increment it higher. And so people who are the married who make close to 150,000, you may not see a check until September. So that's the way in which that is being phased through. But so that's on an individual level. Also, too, the one thing that I think is important is to understand how it affects from an unemployment standpoint. So the stimulus package also provides an extra $600 for individuals who are receiving unemployment benefits. And what they're doing is the extra $600 is going to be given for a 4-month period of time, which is a nice, it's a nice kick for individuals who are on unemployment. And what they're also doing is they're extending the length of time of unemployment from 26 weeks to 39 weeks. And also, too, the other thing to this is that for the first time, they're extending unemployment benefits to those who are gig workers, meaning those who drive Uber and Lyft. And so you may have many people in your congregation who, who are Lyft drivers, or who are, driving, Uber. They can claim unemployment benefits, or freelance workers, for the first time ever. So it really is a benefit to people that extend, well beyond just the businesses. So other people are benefiting from this stimulus package. The other additional benefit is the fact that they've extended the filing deadline from April 15th to July 15th. And so you have an extra 3 months. And also, too, federal student loans and the interest on federal student loans are supposed to be waived until September the 30th. So there's a lot of implications that come with this stimulus package. So when we talk about now, how does this impact churches? The first thing I wanted to talk about was that many people are aware of this Paycheck Protection Program, the PPP, but there's also another program called the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. That's the EIDL. And that is a program that has typically been given through the SBA to small businesses. Actually, both of these have typically only been given to small businesses. And the way in which it works is you go to the SBA website, and then you apply to get this economic injury disaster loan. The purpose of the loan has typically been that if there's a disaster, a national disaster, that affects small businesses, they can tap in and get a loan to help sustain them through the disaster. Say, for instance, Katrina was one in which that was implemented. And so in this instance, small businesses can apply. Now, the interesting thing with the economic injury disaster loan is that within these SBA programs, for the first time ever, they've allowed churches to participate.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, for the EIDL, it's sort of like a give and a takeaway, because with the EIDL, you apply, fill out the information. It's important you have to give them how many employees that you have, and then you just fill in your banking information, and then they'll process it, and then magically you'll receive a check at some time. Now, technically, it's supposed to be 3 days from the time it's processed, but I went through the process just for my small business, and I have not received a check yet. So while they have, quote unquote, allowed churches to participate in this, and this is just straight money that's given. Okay.
So this is not a loan. Is it a grant?
It's a grant. Okay. They call it a loan because what happens is typically, if you are, so not to get too far into this, but for small businesses, they can apply to get a loan due to this, this economic injury disaster. It's actually a loan to where a person can get up to I believe it is, they can get up to 2 million for this loan for small business. So what happens is basically this portion is the advance. So for this $10,000, if you get this through this stimulus package, if those businesses continue to get an actual loan, which churches would not qualify for, then what will happen is that this $10,000 would be an advance towards the loan because it's typically flowed within this package. Now, for individuals who are not seeking the full loan, this is just a grant. So if a church would qualify, this would be a grant of up to $10,000. Now, here's the takeaway. The takeaway is that the SBA just gave clarification that this $10,000 grant with respect to churches, if we just call it that, is only applicable. They're only going to give $1,000 per employee up to a max of $10,000. What's the takeaway? If you have a church and you don't have salaried employees, you would not qualify for this grant.
And now when you say salaried employees, and I'm speaking on behalf of our churches, because we have some smaller churches, some mid-sized churches, and some larger churches. But say if it's a small church and the pastor has a drummer, has an organist, but he pays them, out of
1099,
pocket,
they're not going to qualify.
They got to have a 1099.
They have to be W-2.
They have to be W-2. All right. So therefore, the pastor who doesn't have a W-2, he doesn't get a W-2, or he doesn't get any W-2s, any of his musicians, they won't qualify for this grant.
They're not going to qualify for this grant.
Okay. Now is there anything that they can qualify for? If they have a ministry that's not structured like that.
So if they're not structured like that, they can still apply for the Paycheck Protection Program. That's the PPP. So the thing is that the stimulus packages given under the SBA are in twofold. One is this, economic injury disaster loan, okay? And then the second is the Paycheck Protection Program. Two separate ways, things that you could potentially qualify for if you have salaried employees. Now, if you don't have salaried employees, then the option that you potentially have is the Paycheck Protection Program, okay? And the way in which this works is that under this stimulus package, they call it the CARES Act, the federal government had allocated almost about $349 billion to help small businesses receive some level of bridge support over the course of 8 weeks, 2 months, okay? So with this Paycheck Protection Program, the intent of the program is to provide support to small businesses that are suffering now from these stay-at-home orders, because now their employees can't go and work, they can't make any income, to sustain them for 2 months. Now, the reason why churches were grafted into this is because some of the churches lobbied and said, look, we're not businesses, but we're suffering from stay-at-home orders because now we receive all of our income from tithe and offering. Sure. And so if you're keeping our people at home, we may receive some level of income through online giving, but we're not going to see the same impact and same level of giving as though if people are there in the seats. So we're being impacted as well. And so that was really the strongest argument as to why they said, okay, we will allow churches to be grafted into this.
Now, Attorney Henderson, so
yes, sir.
With the Paycheck Protection Program, if the pastor doesn't receive a paycheck and he doesn't have anybody in the church that receives a paycheck, but he certainly has been impacted by the quote unquote disaster, will they qualify for the Paycheck Protection Program up under those terms?
They would. So what happens is the Paycheck Protection Program allows a business to calculate their average payroll cost. So you look at the average payroll cost over 2099 or 2019, okay? And then what you do is you take your average monthly payroll cost, you multiply that by 2.5, and that would be the loan that you could apply for your local bank. Okay?
And that
So,
payroll would include now that drummer, that organist, that they pay out of pocket.
even if you 1099. So the thing is, the key to this is that you have to have documented proof that you're paying these people. If you're paying them out of pocket, it's not gonna work, because even before you get the loan, first of all, the loan is issued through your local bank. It's underwritten by the government through the SBA, but you're gonna have to go to your local bank, and even before your local bank issues you your loan, they're gonna ask you for proof. Okay, so I had to provide my W-2s and my W-3 to show proof of payroll expenses to my bank. And that was all automated through Chase. Chase said, look, don't even come into the branch. We ain't fooling with y'all. We're doing all this stuff online. And it was seamless. I mean, it took me 10 minutes to do the application. However, I did have to provide documentation to show what the payroll costs were. So you're going to even have to do that.
Could they provide canceled checks?
They can provide canceled checks.
Okay.
But understand that the more information that you have to provide, the longer it's going to take for your loan to be processed. Now, what I'll tell you is I just saw an article this morning that said 90% of this $349 billion stimulus package has already been allocated. Wow. So there ain't much left, and it's a first come, first serve. So now they're trying to work out to get a new deal to expand the funding. Trump is trying to get $500 billion for this program. So he's trying to get more funding towards it. Currently, they only have $349 billion that's approved, okay? 90% of it is gone. So what that says is that I've already applied and I'm still waiting for my bank. So what that says is if you haven't applied now, unless they increase the budget, you're not gonna get it.
Right, the likelihood, right. That's good, that's good, that's good. Thank you, Attorney Henderson. Do we have maybe one question from any of the panel members? We got time for one question.
What I do want to clarify too, though, is that I would still encourage people to apply because chances are there's going to get some push. Chances are there's going to be some increased funding. I think, let's just be real. Trump wants to get reelected. He's going to push and do whatever he can to put money. Matter of fact, he wants, for those who are getting paper checks, he wants to sign the check. So it reminds you to let you know who gave you your check. It's never been done before. No president has ever signed a government check. He wants to sign it to remind you of
you owe me.
Who gave you your check in November. Okay?
It was just approved too.
Whatever he can, especially because the church and the conservative church has been his base.
Oh yeah.
So he's gonna expand that funding and do whatever he can to make sure that as many people can benefit from this, because this is his campaign. It's completely his campaign. How he handles this coronavirus is completely his campaign. It's for him to win and to lose because he has no competition. Every day he's up there pleading this case to the American people because he's trying to get reelected. Okay. So I would say for you to continue, I mean, what's the worst can happen? You just don't get it. Now, what I do want to, before the questions, I want to clarify your question with regards to a pastor who may receive a commission. Maybe he receives a portion of tithe and offering. He does not receive a salary. He or she does not receive a salary. Or they, many of their musicians, which is most churches, don't have musicians as W-2 employees. They pay them as 1099. You can account, so payroll costs includes wages, commissions, which I think would go for those pastors who are receiving a portion of the tithe and offering, salaries, or other similar compensation of an employee or an independent contractor. Okay, so it's a little bit confusing, but here's the difference between what can roll into payroll cost and what cannot. So your drummer, even though they can gig other places, if they're primarily playing for you every week and you're paying them every week like an employee, it's just they're just a independent contractor,
Right.
you can roll that in as payroll cost. Okay.
Yeah.
If you have a janitorial company that comes in and serves your church, because they're a small business, they can apply for the payment protection plan. They would not qualify because they're an established business and they have many other clients that they service. They would not fall within that. Okay. But
Okay.
your musicians, you may have a church administrator who you're not paying as a W-2 employee, just a 1099. Any other staff that you have that are doing that. And then even, most pastors are being paid as 1099. The key to this, though, is that you have to have documented evidence and keep proper accounting of how people are being paid. So, I know we don't do this, but if you have some folks who are trying to kind of clean up your books, because, maybe some things have happened in the past, this may not be the program for you, because if you take this, you potentially could be subject to being audited. Okay. I've heard a couple people say the government is trying to use this in order to get around the First Amendment. Now they're going to start trying to get in. So they're trying to dissuade, persuade people not to take this because it's going to dictate what you can do and how you can run your churches. That's not true. That's far-fetched. But what is important is that if you're still trying to come up to speed with your accounting practices within your church, if there's still some loose ends and things you're trying to get together,
That's
or
good.
if you have never really 1099 people in the past, it's not the time to make this up. Because what's going to happen is once you get the loan, okay, if you get the loan, then what happens is the bank comes back a few weeks later and they're going to ask you now to justify what you've spent this money on. You're going to need to be able to show that you've spent this towards payroll. Now, out of this loan money that you receive, so we're saying you calculate your average cost. So say, for instance, if your average payroll cost is, just sake of example, $10,000 for the year. Hopefully no churches, no pastors are making that less amount of money. So let's say if you're making $50,000. Well, I'm giving nobody's business. So let's say $50,000 is your average payroll cost. So your average payroll cost per month. Let's say if it's $10,000.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm talking monthly, we're not talking about yearly. So we're talking about monthly payroll costs. So if your monthly payroll cost is $10,000, and you go through this process, your loan amount is going to be $25,000.
Right.
Okay. Because it's supposed to cover you for 2 months. Now, out of that $25,000, at least 75% of that money must be spent on payroll. Okay. At least 75%. The other 25% can go towards utilities. If you have a mortgage, it can go towards mortgage interest, not mortgage, but mortgage interest. It can go towards rent if you are at a facility where you're paying rent, or it can go towards paying insurance benefits or any other benefits of your employees. But 75% of that has to go towards at least payroll. Okay. It's not just you get this loan, you can just put it in your pocket. Okay. Because what's going to happen is after you get the loan, the bank is going to come back several months and you're going to have to show and justify how you spent the money. Now, if you can show that you spent the money according to the mandates, 75% at least for payroll, 25% for utilities, other things, what will happen is the loan will be completely forgiven.
The
You won't have to
entire
pay
loan.
it back. The entire loan.
Okay, because we had heard word that 80% would be forgiven.
No, the entire loan will be forgiven. Okay. Now, the stipulation to it is if you have 3 employees, the date that you got the loan, but then once you got the loan, you relieved 1 employee of their duties, what will happen is the amount of forgiveness is going to be reduced by the payroll costs of that person that you let go. So the whole purpose, again, is that they're given the loan so that you don't have to lay anybody off. So within that 8 months, if you take the loan, don't lay anybody off, because that's going to affect, what's going to happen is you'll have a portion of the loan that's forgivable, but there's going to be another portion that you have to pay back. And right now, the loans, once you get it, it's going to be set up as a 2-year loan at 1% interest. Okay. You don't have to pay any payments on that loan for 6 months. Why? Because they're assuming that within that 6 months, you're going to be able to prove up that you've used it according to the mandates and that it'll be forgiven. Okay. But for those people who do not use it according to the mandate, then to whatever extent that you've either gone beyond the allowable limits, that portion would then have to be paid back according to the original terms of the loan.
Wow, that's good. That is good. I believe you answered all of our questions. You did a marvelous job, Attorney Henderson. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bishop.
I'm making that assumption. Is there anybody that has a question for Attorney Henderson before we dismiss him? Again, Attorney Henderson, if we were in church, we would stand up and give you a standing ovation right about now.
No problem. No problem.
Great job, man. Good to see you, man. You know you like family, man. Love you to life. And man, I look forward to talking to you real soon. Thanks again.
Sure. Thank you.